Hi, my name is Joshua Poplawski, and I'm a filmmaker and photographer based out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And today I wanted to give you my review, or more so thoughts, on the 14-inch MacBook Pro M1 Max. So the configuration that I have is the 14-inch, of course, but it's the M1 Max base model. So it has the 24 cores of GPU and it has the 32 gigs of RAM. And I opted in for the 1 terabyte, figured that's enough for all my programs and for whatever projects I'm working on at the time. For the longest time, I've really been just a primarily PC user. I built my own computer in 2016, which is now a server. But then I also built another one in 2019, which is the one that is on all 3 of these monitors right now. And that one has a Ryzen 9 5900X in it, 64 gigs of RAM, 18 terabytes of storage, and that's not even including the storage I have for the server. But that computer is a workhorse. The CPU is a 12-core, 24-thread CPU. It's overclocked, I believe, to about 4.55 gigahertz. So this thing handles pretty much anything that I throw at it. I work with a Canon EOS R, I work with various Sony mirrorless cameras like the a7R II, a7S III, a7 III. I use a variety of different cameras, including even DJI drones. And this computer has no issues running any of that footage. I never really have an issue at all with playback or renders. The only thing that this computer really gets bogged down with is when you do the noise reduction on any footage, but any computer is really going to get bogged down by that. This computer also renders out videos super quick, so this one is my render machine even with this MacBook. So kind of getting into the MacBook on my thoughts. So I was never a big fan of Apple's computers. They always said that they were putting in all these good products and all these different CPUs and GPUs and whatnot, but they never performed proper just because of thermal throttling. They always had issues with their cooling systems in there. They always put the aesthetics over performance. But now with this new MacBook, they kind of are going in the right direction in my opinion. They are kind of bulky now for a laptop. In my opinion, they're still pretty thin, but some people may argue compared to like Ultrabooks or something that it is a thick computer. But I still think it is a good size, good weight, and people just like to get caught up on some stupid stuff all the time. But going back to the cooling now, is they didn't really fix anything when it came to the cooling of this machine. It's still the same, but the difference now is that the M1 Silicon has a less power draw while still being able to perform just as well, or if not better. So you're able to use these M1s for longer and fully utilize the entire power that is coming out of them. In my opinion, this computer is reasonably priced because you have to think you are getting a keyboard, a mouse, and a screen for that $3,000 that this configuration is. This computer that's behind me right now, including the screens, the keyboards, the mouse, I'm probably about $3,500 in. So you're still roughly in that same ballpark with pricing from a desktop to a laptop. We're at the same price when it comes to these two computers. The only difference with this desktop is it has a lot better of a cooling system in there. I have an AIO, an all-in-one cooler, so it is water cooled for the CPU. And this just allows it so then it could actually fully max out all of the cores while still being able to be sufficiently cooled, so you don't have to worry about any thermal throttling or anything like that. When it comes to the MacBook, when I'm rendering out the same videos on here, the whole computer, the whole chassis heats up pretty hot, and sometimes the cores do get to about 100 degrees Celsius, which Apple does say that that is a reasonable temperature for these chips to get to. But just know, when you're rendering out videos, you probably just want to render the video and walk away from the computer till that render is done. Now, talking about the screen on this, the screens are fantastic. This one right behind me here is a 4K 10-bit monitor. And this screen is just a little under 4K, but it looks just as good as this 4K monitor. Now, when it comes to coloring all of your footage or your photos, you want to make sure you have a good and accurate screen. Accurate meaning in the accuracy of the colors. Sometimes if you have a bad screen, you're coloring stuff and then you see it on your phone or somebody else watches it and the colors just aren't there. It's just because your screen wasn't good and you didn't have those accurate colors that you're able to see. With these screens now, I will feel comfortable color grading on this MacBook and not having any issues with my colors altering from screen to screen. Talking about the keyboards now, this keyboard is very nice. It feels very good to be typing on. They finally got rid of their butterfly switches that everyone grew to hate. And I don't know the exact switches in this, but just know that these switches feel so much better than those butterfly switches do. Now, the next point is talking about the battery life on this thing. If you're doing admin stuff like answering emails, working on a website, just browsing your YouTube or browsing whatever it may be, this battery will last, I think it's rated up to about 17 hours. But there's some weeks where I go and only having to charge this up for once for the entire week. Like, I don't know any other laptops, or I've never owned any other laptops that were able to do that. I would always have to charge the laptop up like every night. But this one, I could charge it and be good for 2, 3, 4, 5 days sometimes. So it's really depending on what you're doing. If you're editing, I could edit for a full day on this and still have about half of the battery left over. But when it comes to rendering, renders chew the battery up like it's nothing. But when it comes to rendering, I do suggest you just to plug the laptop in for how fast that battery actually depletes from those renders. Now, earlier I mentioned that the computer behind me kind of gets bogged down when it comes to noise reduction. This M1 Max, it handles noise reduction insane. It doesn't get bogged down, it doesn't take forever to render out. That is the one plus side when it comes to the renders on this one, is that it doesn't get as bogged down as some other computers do when it comes to the noise reduction. And then everyone always says that they have issues with H.265 files, with editing those and how it bogs their computer down. My PC here, it has no issues handling H.265. I think it's just due to the high GPU that I have in it and the high core count and the frequencies. And the PC could just handle some of those files a lot better just because it's more powerful. But for a laptop, especially a MacBook, being able to handle all of that even better than this more powerful computer, it's just insane to me. It really makes the workflow so much better. So now moving into my workflow, when I finish up a shoot, I come back and ingest all the footage onto this computer here. I have some DIT software on here, so I make sure that everything is getting transferred over and there's nothing being missed, or if there's any errors, it lets me know if there's errors, and it generates me a nice report at the end. But after that, I ingest all that footage onto a portable SSD, and I will build it up onto the MacBook. The MacBook, just like I said, it has some benefits over the more powerful desktop. And one of those is just being able to handle some files a little bit better. What I like to do is then build the edit through the MacBook. After everything is applied, I still do like to color grade on the PC just because I have multiple monitors. It's easier to bring up all my scopes and see everything in there, and it just makes the coloring process a little bit easier for me. But after I color everything, then I just render it out on this computer and it's good to go for wherever it is. If it's a client video or YouTube video, it's always rendered on this computer just because I know this computer could do it a little bit quicker and I don't have to worry about it ever dying on me. I do recommend though, overall getting a desktop computer. Desktops are just gonna have better cooling, so then your performance is gonna be better and your overall experience will be better. A laptop is great and all, but it's only good if you're going to be on the road a lot and you don't want to be tied down to an office space or a desk. So if you are in the market for a computer and you have $5,000 to $6,000, I do recommend getting a desktop and a laptop. having the two, it's going to give you the best of both worlds. The MacBook Pro here, it gives you a little bit more processing power when it comes to editing due to those ProRes engines that are integrated into the chip. But the desktop's always going to render out just a little bit quicker and more efficiently just because it has sufficient cooling, and it's just allowing the chipsets to run at their proper temperatures while being still efficient. I really hope this gave you some information about the whole new computer to see if it's going to work for you, if it's not going to work for you, or if you want to do similar workflow or just seeing how people are using this tool. I really hope that it gave you some more insight on all of that. And if it did, I would ask you to just please leave a like on this video, comment down below what you thought was the best part about it, and please consider subscribing.